Our planet has been studied for centuries, mapped from orbit, drilled into, and photographed from every angle imaginable. And yet, every year, researchers stumble onto things that make even seasoned scientists pause and wonder if they've found something they weren't meant to find. Some of these discoveries get buried in academic journals. Others get quietly shelved. A few leak out and become legend. Today we're counting down 15 of the strangest things researchers have ever uncovered, moments when curiosity cracked open a door that maybe should have stayed shut. In the early 2000s, a glaciology team working in the Canadian Arctic recovered a sealed metal case from beneath 30 feet of compacted ice. Ice cores from the surrounding area dated the burial layer to roughly 400 years earlier, long before any recorded expedition had charted that stretch of coastline. Inside the case was a leather-bound notebook, remarkably preserved by the cold and dry conditions. The handwriting was in an unidentified script, not matching any known Inuit, Norse, or European writing system from the period. Linguists who examined photographs of the pages noted repeating symbol clusters that behaved statistically like a real language, not random marks, but no one has been able to translate a single line. The case itself showed tool marks inconsistent with the technology available in the region at the time. To this day, nobody knows who buried it, why they buried it in such a remote and difficult place, or what the notebook actually says. Ranchers in a remote valley in Argentine Patagonia had long complained of a low humming sound that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once, strongest at dawn and dusk. A team of acoustic researchers finally investigated in the 2010s, expecting to find wind resonance through rock formations, a common and well-understood phenomenon. Instead, their sensors picked up a frequency pattern that pulsed in an almost rhythmic sequence, on for several seconds, off for several seconds, repeating for hours before stopping entirely. The pattern did not correlate with wind speed, temperature, or any seismic activity in the region. Excavation near the strongest signal point revealed a large underground cavity filled with a mineral deposit unlike anything cataloged in the area's known geology. The humming has never fully stopped, and the research team's final report simply noted the source remains unexplained. During restoration work on a centuries-old monastery in the mountains of Georgia, in the country, not the state, structural engineers found a hidden staircase behind a false wall. It led to a sealed chamber containing hundreds of manuscripts, none of which appeared in the monastery's known inventory. Historians who cataloged the find discovered that many of the texts referenced events and figures with no corroboration anywhere else in the historical record. One recurring name appeared across dozens of documents written in different handwriting over what appeared to be generations, suggesting either an extraordinarily long-lived individual or a title passed down and reused. The monastery's current residents had no record of the chamber's existence and no explanation for why it had been so carefully hidden. Before we continue, if you're enjoying this one, drop a like and subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive into the world's strangest mysteries. Marine biologists mapping the seafloor off the coast of a Pacific island chain detected an unusually symmetrical structure roughly 90 meters down, far deeper than typical coral growth for that region. When a remotely operated submersible was sent to investigate, the footage showed a formation with unnaturally straight edges and right angles, features coral does not typically produce on its own. Sediment core samples suggested the structure had been submerged for at least 8,000 years, well before sea levels in that area were low enough for surface construction. The research team's working theory is that the formation may be natural mineral accretion around an unknown substrate, but they've candid that the geometry is difficult to explain through known coral growth patterns alone. Further expeditions have been proposed, but have not yet been funded. A team of medical anthropologists studying skeletal remains from a Bronze Age burial site in Central Europe noticed something odd across multiple, unrelated individuals. An identical hairline fracture pattern on the same rib, on the same side, healed at roughly the same stage of life. Statistically, this kind of repeated, highly specific injury across unrelated skeletons separated by decades or even centuries is extraordinarily rare. The leading theory is a shared ritual practice or occupational hazard passed down through generations, but no cultural record, oral tradition, or artistic depiction from the region hints at what that practice might have been. Whatever caused it, it happened to enough people in exactly the same way for long enough to leave a fingerprint in the historical record that nobody can read. Speleologists exploring a newly discovered cave system in Southeast Asia found wall paintings that, under standard lighting, appeared to be simple depictions of animals and hunting scenes, similar to other prehistoric art in the region. But under raking light at a low angle, a technique used to reveal subtle relief carving, a second layer of imagery appeared beneath the paint, carved directly into the rock and clearly predating the painted layer by an unknown span of time. The carved layer depicted what researchers described as sequential, almost frame-by-frame imagery, suggesting an attempt to represent motion or the passage of time, a concept not typically associated with art this old. Dating the carved layer has proven difficult because of the cave's mineral composition, and the research team has been cautious about speculating on what the images actually represent. Climate researchers drilling ice cores in Antarctica to study historical atmospheric composition occasionally use the trapped air bubbles to reconstruct ancient soundscapes indirectly through pressure and composition data. During one such analysis, a team noticed an anomalous vibrational signature embedded in ice data too. Roughly 12,000 years ago, a period with no known human presence anywhere near the drilling site. The signature did not match any known natural process, glacial shift, volcanic activity, or wildlife. The team's official position is that it is likely an artifact of the drilling process itself, but they have acknowledged in follow-up interviews that they were unable to fully replicate or explain the anomaly using known equipment interference patterns. Archaeologists excavating what they believed was a mid-sized agricultural settlement in rural Anatolia found something unexpected as they dug deeper. The settlement had no discernible founding layer. Every other ancient settlement studied in the region shows a clear earliest layer, the point where the first structures were built on undisturbed ground. This site simply kept going, layer after layer of continuous habitation, without ever reaching a bottom that matched the surrounding untouched soil. Ground-penetrating radar suggested the occupied layers extend well beyond what current excavation equipment can safely reach. The research team has paused digging, citing both funding and a genuine uncertainty about how much older the site might actually be than current models of regional settlement allow for. A geophysics team studying magnetic anomalies in a remote stretch of the Ural Mountains documented a small area, roughly the size of a football field, where compass readings consistently and predictably corrected themselves after a short delay, rather than simply pointing to a fixed anomalous source. In other words, a compass carried into the zone would briefly point in a wrong, shifting direction, then settle back to true north within a minute or two, every single time, regardless of the path taken into the area. Magnetometer surveys found no obvious mineral deposit large enough to explain the effect, and the delay and correction pattern does not match any known model of localized magnetic interference. The area remains under study, with researchers rotating through short visits to gather more data. A paleontology team working 2 dig sites over 4,000 kilometers apart, one in South America and one in Africa, each independently uncovered a fossilized creature with what appeared to be an identical, extremely rare skeletal deformity, down to the exact vertebra affected. The species themselves were different, unrelated by direct lineage, and separated by tens of millions of years in the fossil record. The odds of 2 unrelated species developing the exact same rare deformity in the exact same location on the skeleton, at completely different points in evolutionary history, are considered vanishingly small by the researchers involved. No satisfying explanation has been published, and the case has quietly become a talking point at paleontology conferences. Archaeologists excavating a royal burial mound in Central Asia expected to find, at minimum, skeletal remains at the center of the tomb, based on the elaborate grave goods surrounding the burial chamber. Gold ornaments, weapons, pottery, and textiles were all present in pristine, undisturbed condition, with no signs of looting or later intrusion. But the central chamber, where a body should have been, was completely empty. There was no evidence the body had ever been removed, no disturbance in the surrounding soil, and no explanation for why an elaborate, clearly important burial would have been sealed with no one in it. The research team has floated theories ranging from a symbolic cenotaph to a burial where the body was never recovered from wherever the person died, but no definitive answer has been reached. A team of seismologists monitoring a fault line in New Zealand noticed that one of their sensitive ground motion sensors began producing a strange, low-level signal roughly 6 hours before each of 3 consecutive minor earthquakes, a pattern far too consistent to easily dismiss as coincidence. When the team tried to isolate and study the pre-signal in a controlled setting, they found the sensor stopped producing it entirely and has not reproduced the pattern since, even through subsequent seismic activity in the same location. Whether the original signal was a genuine early warning phenomenon or a hardware quirk that happened to align with real events 3 times in a row remains an open and mildly uncomfortable question for the team involved. Conservators restoring a centuries-old panel painting in a European museum used infrared imaging to check for typical underdrawings, the sketch an artist makes before painting. Instead, they found not 1 but 3 distinct, fully realized paintings layered beneath the visible surface, each painted over the last and each depicting a completely different scene by what appeared to be a different hand. What unsettled the research team most was that the deepest layer, the earliest painting, appeared to depict the room the panel currently hangs in, centuries before that room existed. The museum has not released full imaging of the deepest layer publicly, citing ongoing analysis, and conservators involved have declined to speculate further on the record. Geologists conducting a routine mineral survey of a massive salt flat in South America picked up a faint, repeating electromagnetic pulse originating from beneath the crust, roughly 200 meters down. Drilling to investigate revealed a naturally occurring crystalline structure of a composition not previously documented in that formation, dense enough to theoretically account for a magnetic signal, but not obviously capable of producing a pulse with a regular, evenly spaced timing the team recorded. The pulse has continued, unchanged in interval, for the entire multi-year duration of the study. The research team's funding body has approved further drilling, and results from the next phase of the project have not yet been published. A climate research team analyzing decades of archived satellite imagery to track glacial retreat noticed a small, sharply defined structure in a set of images from a genuinely uninhabited stretch of Siberian tundra, a location with no recorded human presence for hundreds of kilometers in any direction. The structure appeared consistently across multiple satellite passes over several years, then vanished entirely between 2 consecutive image sets with no gradual change, no debris field, and no environmental event on record that could explain its disappearance. Ground teams dispatched to the coordinates found undisturbed permafrost with no physical evidence anything had ever been there at all. The research team's final note on the matter was brief. The imagery is authentic, the coordinates are confirmed, and the explanation is, for now, unknown. 15 discoveries and 15 questions that still don't have satisfying answers. Which one do you find the strangest? Have you come across a mystery like this yourself, something a researcher found that never got a proper explanation? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this one, make sure to like and subscribe so you catch the next deep dive into the strangest things our planet has been hiding. We'll see you in the next one.